Oh, there we go. So far, so good. That's actually cool. This shit works. Oh, that's what's up. That's dope. So let me see how this goes. It should be streaming through Facebook. It is not. It says it is. Ha! Now we're cooking with grease. So we go back here. So, good evening, people. And on behalf of rescuing our communities, it's a little late, forgive me. I was supposed to be on about 5 minutes ago, but this is the first time we've done a live broadcast of this nature. My name is Clayton. I am the host of this event, I would say. And this event is supposed to highlight what you can do in situations where you are being abused through the legal system and through a process which is known as litigation abuse. Well, I have to be mindful of this window here because if I'm not, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Why did it just take me out of there? That is like so weird. Okay, camera like there. What's up with that? There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. I do not know why we just lost the feed, but we'll figure that out in 1 second. Okay, we're live. How you doing? So, good evening, everyone. On behalf of rescuing our community. Let's go. You got some feedback, people. Forgive me. I gotta figure this out. Come on, I can figure this out. Must be streaming. It's not. Says it's all. Now we're cooking with grease. So we go back here. So good evening, people. And on behalf of rescuing our communities, it's a little late, forgive me. I was supposed to be on about 5 minutes ago, but this is the first time we've done a live broadcast. Okay, people, I'm back. I'm sorry. I was trying to figure this out. I am the host of this event, I would say. And this event is supposed to highlight what you can do in situations where you think I should be listening to myself live, people. Just bear with me a second. I don't think it's supposed to be doing this. This is new for me. Just bear with me. I'm gonna get this right. I should be listening to myself live. Just think we have a delay, people. I don't think it's supposed to be doing this. This is new. Bear with me. I'm gonna get this right. Listening to myself live. Don't want to cut. We have a delay. I don't think it's supposed to be doing this. This is new. Bear with me. I'm gonna get this right. Hey, people, trying to get this. Trying to get this right. I gotta make sure I can be heard. Get this. Why are you playing with me? Trying to get this right. I gotta make sure I can be heard. There we go, everyone. Why are you playing? Trying to get this right. You gotta make sure I can be heard. There we go, everyone. Okay. Trying to get this right. You gotta make sure I can be heard. Operation Rock in rescuing our communities. Forgive me, this is the first time I've set up this live cast, so it took me a little bit to figure it out. My name is Clayton, and I am here to talk tonight about litigation abuse and domestic violence. And what you can do is, should you have an offender who chooses and or law enforcement to, I would say, get vengeance or your retaliation for something that might have happened during a domestically abusive relationship. I actually had several tickets booked for this show, but no one showed up. But the mere fact that they booked the show and didn't show up is enough for me to keep going forward because people were interested in the event. I don't know where these people were who booked themselves for the event, but I will say that the weather is bad today in where I'm at in New Jersey. So considering and taking the weather into account,
I basically just say, they couldn't make it, so I will still continue with the broadcast and they can watch it. Whatever they learn from the broadcast will be beneficial because that is the purpose of this. The purpose of this is knowledge and empowerment, and hopefully a need to help others who, like myself, unfortunately went through the situation that they had to deal with something like this. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Clayton. I work with a charity by the name of Operation Rock, which you can kind of see branded behind me. The charity was started probably, I would say, about 6 or 7 years ago by my late mother, a minister on Staten Island by the name of Reverend Maggie Howard. My mother was, she was an amazing woman. She was an amazing woman who inspired many people throughout her travels. She was a missionary, I believe, in several of the African countries on the African continent. Her life took her throughout Israel and the Middle East. She had a pretty great life. I would say now in maturity, I could be quite glad that she did the things she needed to do. I guess it was just her time, people. Life is like that sometimes. There's not really much we can do. Um, what is my experience with this? Um, I would say I am quite qualified to speak about what I am speaking about tonight. I was unfortunately horribly stalked and domestically assaulted by someone I once dated and cared a great deal for. This person, in their capacity to want vengeance against me, had me arrested multiple times, attacked my child, actually got my child taken from me, robbed me. Literally, probably, I would say be said made my life a living hell for several years. I don't say this because I say it to speak badly about the person, because honestly, life is life, people. It's really not much we can do about it. Sometimes when you offend someone so much where they feel the need that they have to get back with you, you're just pretty much you have to deal with it. And that's what happened with me. So I'm not actually angry at the person who hurt me. I'm more just disappointed in the situation that happened. But nonetheless, that experience took me to a point in my life where I became very, 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 very familiar with the domestic violence process and the legal system. It's unfortunate when you can come out of a relationship and you can honestly say that someone gave you a PhD in domestic violence. But that's what my ex-girlfriend gave me. She literally gave me a PhD in disputes, excuse me. So now, with that knowledge that I gained through basically just being, I'm trying to find the perfect word for this. Basically, the family court and the criminal system was used to harass the living hell out of me. This woman filed violations to orders of protection against me that were literally verbatim to the previous violation before that. She was obsessed with the fact that she needed to get revenge on me because she felt I falsely accused her of child abuse, which I never did, ladies and gentlemen. The truth was is that I actually tried to protect her because I didn't want this young woman to go to jail for doing something stupid in a moment of, I would say, emotional turmoil. Nonetheless, this happened. She got emotional. She decides she wants vengeance. She wants to hurt me. She wants to go after my child. She wants to take everything I care about from me. And in a moment of even greater stupidity, she reaches out to the child's mother. This starts a whole big BS. And I just get dragged through the legal system, literally, people, for the next year and a half of my life. The situation is actually not still over, but I can say with great confidence now, it's given me, I would say, an experience that I think will be quite useful to people who are going through the exact same thing as I am. While I was arrested, I probably can say while I was arrested, I was, hmm, while I was arrested, I could say I ran into 60% of the people who were arrested for domestic violence offenses claimed they did not do anything. And I would say of that 60%, I probably believe more than half of them. When you're arrested for domestically abusing someone or harassing them, the most, I would say, obvious criteria of domestic abuse is physical assault. Many of them had none. It was kind of just like arguments back and forth with girlfriends or with girlfriends because they don't lock up men and women in New York or New Jersey. And during these arguments, these people would get into arguments, leave, whatever, and then boom, the cops would come. Hey, you violated an order of protection. How the heck did I do that? They're in jail. Domestic violence orders of protections have now become the new, I would say, form of vengeance for a partner who no longer has an option to get revenge on you. What these partners will do is once they realize the relationship is over, or you seriously you're seriously not giving them the opportunity to repair the relationship, or hell, you may have moved on to someone else. What they will do, and sometimes it doesn't happen intentionally. Sometimes something happens where the person really might want to be with you. You're avoiding them. You're not talking to them. You bump into them, whatever. The cops get involved. They lie to the cop once. They see the effect it has, and then it can just snowball from there. I'll say in my situation, I don't think that the person who actually did this to me intended for it to get as horrible as it is. I'll say that in fairness to that person, which is insane. I don't actually think that they wanted that to happen. I kind of just think it did happen because in the course of the war, sometimes you lose sight of the things that are the most important to you. And I could definitely say that this person did that and it cost them greatly. Excuse me, someone's texting me about this. Um, a friend of mine is asking me why nobody showed up. I'm like, hey, they paid for the ticket. I don't know what to tell you, but it is what it is. It's cool. So basically, I just decided to kind of move forward with it. The best thing you can do with it is move forward, give them knowledge, and the people who enjoy it, they enjoy it. The people who don't enjoy it, they don't watch it. So, that's my experience. I had to fight the legal system. I had to fight off these reports. I had to fight off public scrutiny. I had to fight off the lies and the public slander and defamation this person created against me. Launched a campaign, I would say, to straight on assault me. They went through a community. I am actually from Staten Island. What they did was, my mother being a former prominent minister on Staten Island, they chose to try to defame her and also me, considering I'm her son and I'm what's left of her that she's now gone, by trying to paint me as a domestically abusive male who harassed and stalked this woman and her mother, which really wasn't good for me considering she had recently died and I was still kind of dealing with that whole grief process and the I would say need to kind of move past that point in my own life. So they made it these women made it actually incredibly difficult. The mother actually cursed out my deceased mother, and that's what started the whole conflict out of effect. I had planned on having the people who had signed on to come. I'm trying to make sure none of them are in the waiting room because I am like so new to doing this. This is the first time I'm doing this. I'm just trying to make sure I don't not have anyone in the waiting room because there were people who definitely signed on for this. I don't know where they are, and I don't want them to tell me they didn't get it. So I have to keep my emails and everything before me, people, because my intention is not to defraud anyone who signed on to this, because several people actually did. I'm quite shocked that they're not here because I really prepared this because I was trying to give people a very, very, very good and beneficial show, but I still will. So, without further ado, that was my experience. Being that those things have, oh, I'm actually not done. So this person did that. I went through the motions. I filed the paperwork. I got everything done. Although the breakup became public and messy, I did still attempt to do the right thing. I never got violent. I never got aggressive. I was angry because this was someone I cared about clearly, and they did some pretty horrible things to me. But for the most part, I was good. I wasn't abusive to this person. I didn't try to hurt them. I literally tried to stay away and use what the actually use what I had to use, which was the legal system, to just keep the breakup and just keep her away from me because that's how off her and her family was. Ultimately, she was charged with burglary and harassment for some crimes she committed. I didn't even want to charge her. The truth was, she made me have to charge her because she wouldn't leave it alone. And she kept trying to lie and accuse me of domestic violence so she could seize property of mine to hurt me. This made me take some evidence to the police, proving that she robbed me. On top of that, she also confessed to the detective because she thought she was so smart she was going to outthink the detective. She was wrong, and she was charged. In response to that, she goes into New York. She files a order of protection against me, accusing me of a bunch of offenses of domestic violence. New York issues her a general order of protection. She now tries to use as a barrier to keep me from retrieving the property, because remember, she had been criminally charged in another state. The problem became for me when New York State, namely Staten Island. For those of you who don't know, Staten Island is part of New York City. Staten Island is probably the most racist borough in the city of New York. It has very old school. It has a very old school mentality with regard to minorities and Caucasian Americans, excuse me, which is not fair. It's honestly it's limiting to many of the minorities out there. It's limiting to the males. It's limiting to the people. But this is the way Staten Island has been for 40 years of my life, which is how old I am now. I have never not known a Staten Island where this did not exist, which made me really angry at first. But in being mature and becoming to realize what it actually was, I realized it wasn't a problem singular to me. I realized that it actually happened to hundreds, if not thousands of people a year, and not only Staten Island, but throughout the city, and honestly, probably hundreds of thousands of people throughout the country. Every year, people are falsely arrested for things they did not do with regard to domestic violence, from partners who are so offended and angry that the relationship has ended that they choose to utilize the law enforcement system, to utilize, I would say, connections, to utilize friends who may work in domestic violence as supporting cast in a war they may wage against someone who no longer wants to be with them. And that was kind of my story. Fast forward to December of last year, 2022, I go to trial. I'm awarded this final lifetime no contact order of protection, which honestly hurt when I was awarded it because I cared about the person. And I realized now that I had this order that was it. I would never be able to speak to this person again, but it was something that I had to deal with, which I did. Um, Fast forwarding maybe a couple of days, this woman, completely vengeful that she had lost this trial, decided to take all of the accusations that had been dismissed in the state of New Jersey into New York, into a precinct in Staten Island that, forgive me for saying this for people who may be offended from Staten Island, but had a detective squad who is highly racist and has been so for decades. These people seeing me as a minority male who had formerly, unfortunately, had some run-ins with the law years ago, they decided that I was unworthy of this order of protection. So they decide they're going to completely disregard my order of protection. What they're going to do is make her the victim. In doing that, ladies and gentlemen, they completely violate my rights. They will not allow me any justice, people. Excuse me, the lighting is kind of bad on this. They will not allow me any justice. They completely disavow my order of protection. Um, I believe she had me charged on the 5th of December. I walk in the 5th of the I speak to a detective sometime in December. I explained to him that this woman was 100% convicted of harassing me in burglary in the state of New Jersey the exact same day that she files this report. This detective, being part of the institution I told you about in Staten Island, which is composed of racism, bigotry, and local connections, basically tells me he doesn't care that I'm innocent. He wants to arrest me, and he does just that. He puts what's known as an I-card on me. And for anyone who is not from New York City, an I-card is an NYPD investigatory tool, excuse me, where they are allowed to bring in suspects for the possibility that they may have committed a crime, which is a valid tool for a detective in a city like New York with millions of people and highly complex criminals. It's a valid tool. It helps them speed along the time that they would normally not have if they needed to pull someone off the street. The problem is that they use this tool to illegally boost arrest certificates. Statistics, excuse me. They use it to just pull people in and charge them with crimes that are completely baseless. Uh, uh, Basically manipulating domestic violence emergency law to make it seem like because the complaint was filed, they just have to make this arrest. The truth of the matter is there are mitigating circumstances that can be made, and especially who had literally reported me the day I won a decision in a trial against them. That's called retaliation, which is a mitigating circumstance that could have made this detective look more into the report, which they're actually doing now. This guy was more concerned with arresting me as a black man, getting statistic, getting an arrest under his belt, and he did just that. I fought the case off for about 11 months, 10 months. The prosecutors of Staten Island, who also knew my ex-girlfriend, 100% refused to drop the case. They did everything they could to try to get me to cop out to something, which I was not trying to do because I did not do it, ladies and gentlemen. Why would I plead guilty to something I never did? You must be crazy. I fought it off. I did everything I needed to do, which gave me a lot of the knowledge I'm going to share with you tonight. And basically, they had no choice but to admit that the person who did what they did to me was lying and falsifying information. The biggest indicator I had was the fact that the person was cyberbullying the hell out of me, and probably had, I would say, 400 or 500 pieces of false and fictitious, excuse me, content they had created online. Forgive me, but I'm kind of watching the room to make sure nobody pops in this room, because I registered a lot of tickets. I am surprised that no one's here. There were a bunch of people who signed up. But if they're from the tri-state area, which I believe they could be, because this is where the charity is based out of, the storm may have them a little discombobulated. So again, I'm going to continue regardless. I fought this case off. The case was finally dismissed in November. Despite the fact of that, my offender, who happens to have a connection to a local church pastor who is politically connected to the top of the mountain, decides to continue to help this woman, I would say, falsify the negative information against me by now putting her before his church to help her reestablish her credibility as a victim of domestic violence, considering all my charges had now been dismissed. This kind of increased, I would say, the problem I was having with getting this woman to leave me alone. Because by this corrupt pastor putting this woman back before people to lie to the people, but to seem as though he thought she was telling the truth and to falsify the people that she was telling the truth, it now gave me more difficulty convincing the police to do anything to get this woman to stop me, which I'm actually still working on. But, you know, God is good. So basically, that's my experience, ladies and gentlemen. The organization itself, Operation Rock, again, was started by my late mother, probably, I would say, 6 to 7 years ago. She passed in, I would say, mid 2003 due to COVID and heart complications. That was a rough one for me, but in that, I was inspired, I would say, by the women who claimed they loved her to complete the legalization, excuse me, of the charity. Once I did that, these people turned out to not actually be of, I would say, true character and purpose enough to do what was needed with the work. They were just simply lazy, and they did nothing. Now, I can't say anything against them without speaking for myself. I was also involved in other things. Selfishly, I was dealing with the situation with this woman. I had had a daughter, and I honestly was not in a place that I could do something like this mentally, where I think I could be strong enough to help people see what I have seen about certain things in life. But God has an amazing way, people, of waking you up. And I believe the way he woke up me up, one, was allowing me to gain access to my daughter. That was one. Two, it was allowing me to have to gain the strength to fight back the woman who did this to me, because this woman turned out to be in shocked people. I never realized the amount of people that this woman was capable of manipulating. She has done a masterful job of launching this war against me. She has really, 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 really done some, I would say, tactfully strategic attacks that have caused me great financial, social, and just economic damage. She has been amazing. I have to be honest. Like, if she could have been mature enough to apologize, I probably would have forgave her, because people I respect an enemy, and she made herself a very formidable enemy. I'll be honest. But I wasn't that fortunate. My offender turned out to be crazy. It didn't get to a point where they, began to reminisce over maybe, damn, things like this needed to happen. They just strictly wanted vengeance and blood. It didn't matter about anything. I want blood. You got everything back. You won this, you won that. You made me look stupid. I want you to look stupid. I want you to pay. And literally, that's what this woman has done, filing dozens of false police reports on me, people, numerous false arrests. I mean, the woman was so desperate to get revenge on me, she lied on me and actually tried to tell the NYPD that I threatened her outside of a court with 27 cameras, external cameras, and probably 150 internal cameras. Anyway, the NYPD, basically Staten Island's 120 precinct, with its history of, I would say, malicious arrest and persecution of minorities, arrest me without even reviewing the camera footage that is 100% available and at their disposal. What they did is cuff me and detain me for 7 hours, because the truth was, if I wasn't fortunate enough to have a lawyer, they were going to process me through the public defender system and keep me in jail lying, saying I threatened this woman outside of a court, but they knew I didn't. Finally, these attorneys, after chewing these detectives out for about 5 hours, the detectives have to admit that there is no footage where I've ever threatened this woman. I left the court 20 minutes before the woman left the court, and they had to release me. In their capacity still to protect this woman, they actually refused to charge her with a false report, even though that report was more clear to be false than the first report they arrested me for. They still refused. But God is good, people. The fight is here, the fight is coming, and we are going to empower people. So, I've given you my experience. I wanted to do some introductions, but I still do see that these people didn't come. So, people, you see, I'm doing my obligation. I am hosting this session as this webinar, excuse me, as the host for Operation Rock to empower people about the ills of litigation abuse. I'm doing my part. So, we're going to start with orders of protection. Orders of protection can basically be, the orders of protection can be several ways. You can have what's called a general order or a complete no contact order. Even though general orders of protection, which are not as specific, then they can have specific criteria in them. Like, let's say no social media, no third party contact, a stay away order, child custody regulations, etc. No contact orders are just that, no contact. No contact order means by no means you can have contact with this person, and they can have additional stipulations with regard to distance requirements. You have to stay away from the person. Meaning, with a distance requirement, excuse me, let's say you have a 100-yard distance requirement and you walk into a mall and that person's in the mall. Legally, you have to leave that mall. It doesn't matter that you got there. You have to leave that mall the second you see that person. That's how it works. No contact orders are no joke. That's the order that literally gives a person the power to have you arrested on site, to have you arrested on whim, on inclination. A no contact order is quite serious. A general order is not that serious. A general order just basically says you can't commit new crimes against someone or anything directly stipulated by the court. Now, these orders come in two forms, and this is the important part. The first form they come in is what's called a temporary order. That temporary order is temporary for this reason. The reason that order is temporary because the charges have not been what's called adjudicated, which means heard before a judge. Once the charges are heard before a judge, and whichever side can prove the most, I would say, whichever side is best capable of proving that the information provided is most accurate, is determined by the judge to be the one in need of an actual order. Now, it's possible that both parties may not get in order, because many times in domestic situations, judges aren't stupid. They see that two people just simply hate each other, so they'd be like, get the hell out of here. But in a lot of cases, they'll just grant both the people the order because they realize they're crazy, and both of these people need an order just in case one person hurt the other, this person hurts the other. At least the court, law enforcement, we're protected. We did our jobs. This is what it is. But now, if you go to court and let's say hypothetically you win that trial as the victim and you get what's called a final order, which is the second form of the order. The final order is this. A final order is, it's final. It means you went to a trial and after a judge hearing your side of the story and the other side of the person's story decided that your side of the story was closer to the truth and more accurate than the other side of the person's story. Family court has a different preponderance of evidence than criminal court. And what I mean by that there is a different, I would say, threshold of how strong the evidence has to be against a person. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm still looking at this screen to make sure that no one's in this waiting room so they can't say, hey, I showed up and no one was there because I'm donating all this money to my mom's charity. I'm not playing. Anyway, and some of you were free anyway, so it doesn't matter. I think like half of you were free because I gave out a bunch of tickets just to have people in here who were interested. So I lost my thought. Forgive me, people. Final. So you go to trial, you win this order, it's final. Now, in a final order, depending on what state you are, some states don't have final lifetime orders. They have final orders, but they'll have a period of 3 to 5 years. The state of New Jersey has what's called a lifetime order. And a lifetime order is given a much higher threshold and burden to prove what actually happened than orders from states with no lifetime because of the duration. And it's quite serious because 10 years from now, that means you still have an order of protection against you, which is serious. So they take a pretty, I have to give it to them in the trial process. They are very thorough. And I'm not saying that because I won. I'm saying that because I saw what they did and what they made me provide in order to prove I won. Like my offender actually took snippets from things trying to deceive the court. I was forced to submit hundreds of pages of text to show the actual conversation and the way things had digressed so that they could see the overall picture. And they actually looked at it to determine who was telling the truth. Um, it was a bad situation, people. But ultimately, I came out of it on top. This woman decided to file false charges on me, and I got these two orders against. I had the temporary and final. So in the beginning, when you get a final order, let's say your offender angry decides to come after you. The first responsibility is not to go back to the court. You have to actually go back. You have to start at law enforcement because law enforcement is there to enforce the conditions of the court. The court has no arm that can actually enforce its order. This is why the state courts or the city courts will impose the order, so local law enforcement have to enforce the order. All orders of protection, I learned this during my unfortunate situation, are protected under what's called domestic violence law. And I believe the law exactly is the Violence Against Women Act of 1991, which was also updated in the 90s again. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. I will post it in the comments on YouTube so you can look this law up and read it yourself, and you'll basically know what it says. Basically, what that law says is that if you have an order that is protected under USCA 18, the Violence Against Women Act of 1991, your order is enforceable in every jurisdiction within the country or I would say, United States of America. That is what I want to say. You can go to Texas, you can go to California, you can go to Ohio, you can go to Florida, you can go to these cities traveling around once a week, and your stalker can be following you in a car and literally showing up. And guess what? Every time you go to a precinct in that state with that order, they have to enforce that order. Now, many times law enforcement will try to play you and act like they don't have to enforce it because it's from out of state. And they really do that because they don't know the laws of that particular state. If it's not something that's just blatant, like the person trying to kill you or something like that, they'll kind of defer you off because just because it's a crime in that state, in your state, doesn't mean it's a crime there, or just because it's a crime in their state doesn't mean it's a crime in your state. So they'll try to blow you off in your order of protection so they don't really have to do anything. But the truth is they do have to do something because the order is federally protected. Um, the problem can become if, like myself, you have an order and law enforcement decides that you don't deserve to be the victim. If you get an order of protection and law enforcement decides, hey, F you, you don't deserve to be the victim, we're going to look out for who we want to look out for, you're screwed. I had a beautiful ex-girlfriend. She was intelligent. She was well-spoken. She was politically connected through a corrupt pastor who I happen to personally know throughout my entire life for the most part. This man hating me for the simple fact that I knew truths about him he wanted no one else to know, decides to empower this young woman by introducing her to a district attorney motivated because I've known him also. Not I've known him. I wouldn't say our relationship is personal. Our relationship has been in passing in public situations. We've actually met, I believe, 2 or 3 times, but we're not friends. We have no personal relationship. I don't even think I ever spoke to the man longer than a sentence. So I can't hold him. I can't hold him to say that he knows me personally and shouldn't have tried to prosecute me. Because the truth is, I don't even know the man. So he could have did whatever he wanted to do. He doesn't like black men. I'm a black man. I got an added former criminal record on me. He looks at me as a slam dunk for his office. You know what? Oh, he's harassing her. Let's put that Negro in jail. That's basically what he did, as him being the man he is. I fought this case off for 11 months, people, and it was a nightmare. The woman tried to have me arrested multiple times while I was fighting the case, people, and it's unfortunate that this borough of Staten Island, with everything I did, refused, absolutely refused to honor my order of protection. They made it a nightmare for me, people. A little bit of sugar helps sometimes. They made it a nightmare for me, people. and them making it a nightmare for me like they did, I decided to calm down, one, because honestly, I was incredibly angry in the beginning. With right people, I had lost my mother, this woman who I met in the pit of my grief and who I entrusted to kind of, I would say, be someone I leaned on during that grief, used everything she learned about me during the grief to attack me when I left her because her mother broke us up for being a piece of crap, excuse the language. Um, that was very hurtful. It gave me a feeling of incredible, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Resentment. I definitely resented her. I thought she was just like a completely horrible person, and that resentment eventually turned into disgust, negativity, anger. People, I really, really just started to hate this girl, which is unfortunate because at one time I loved her and I meant that. And it's sad when love can turn to hate so fast. It's like the Martin Lawrence movies entitled "The Thin Line Between Love and Hate." People, that's true. You can go from hating someone to loving them in a fraction of a second if they do the right thing to you. And you won't even feel bad about it because the truth is sometimes a person can honestly earn your hatred. And I know there's many people listening who might think, oh, how can he say that people can earn your hatred? Sometimes a person can do something to you so bad, people, that will make you forego every good feeling you feel about them. Even when you want to feel something good about them, you're going to remember the bad things they do to you, and you're going to be like, yo, forget them, yo. And that's honestly what happened with this young woman. So now I didn't want to do this, but it ultimately turned into this. And that's what that was the end of that. I'm sorry, I kind of lost track with it. But it's going good so far. I'm still trying to watch this to make sure no one comes in. So basically I was completely ignored by law enforcement. Um there was some things I had to do to kind of fight this because there were certain elements that were kind of, I would say, commingling into a larger element. One is that, like I said, Staten Island was inherently racist and has been so for decades. That was a part of it. The second component of it was the bigotry involved in it through the pastor trying to manipulate his connection in law enforcement because of whatever his real affinity towards this young woman was. The pastor was the pastor of a local church who I had known for 30 years and whom my late mother had actually been more of a spiritual mentor and counselor to because he was such a nefarious, like, he wasn't a good guy. But basically, what she did is after one major time he messed up and kind of like betrayed the church and his wife and lost a lot, she kind of walked him through there by going to his church, preaching, showing people the goodness that was in her. Because by being connected to her, it reestablished his credibility around being around serious ministers within the community. Because every local minister needs those connections with local ministers so they can kind of create the important structure amongst themselves. The things that give you power in circles like that is two things, people. It's either money or connections. And I'll be honest with you, in circles like that, you can get more accomplished with good, strong connections than you'll ever get accomplished with money. And my mom was like that. She had true character. She had helped a lot of people over her 20, 30-year tenure on Staten Island. She was highly connected into the political structure and overall advocacy structure on Staten Island for the free and I would say unrecognized work she did for almost 30 years. And this man 100% bled her for it every opportunity he got. Um, his corruption, honestly, is kind of ironic considering how much she used to try to encourage the man to do the right thing. It's kind of like a complete slap in the face to her memory that he would have tried to set up her son for an innocent crime. But we can't always expect people to return the good other people do to them with righteous and with righteous and um we always try to I would say judge people for with righteous and good conduct, but sometimes people it is what it is. Like we can try to judge someone for as much as we want, but when someone is a bad person, they're a bad person. And this man is just a bad person. I am giving him the respect of not saying his name during this broadcast because this broadcast is not focused on him truthfully or the woman who, if everyone notices, I have not said her name either. I'm really just relating my experience between corruption and a broken ex-partner to kind of more justify the things I'm saying. Let's see. complications was racism, bigotry, connections, sexism. Sexism, what I meant by sexism. Sexism, that's another complication. And that's really the fact that your ex-partner happens to be physically attractive. And this can apply to men and women, believe it or not. Not so much with men as it does with women, but it definitely applies with women because as we know, many detectives are men. So the more attractive a woman is, the more she's able to use that with a detective whose mind might be weaker. Adding racism to that, adding some connections to that, people, I had a hell of a problem. I am highly experienced to talk about what I'm talking about tonight, believe me. Um, so yeah, we deal with completeness now. How did I get around that? Because I don't think I'm gonna have to give 2 hours because these people didn't show up. So I'm pretty much satisfied in the next 15 minutes because all I had to really give was 45 minutes to satisfy the contract with the event company, and I did that. So I'm gonna kind of surmise this for you guys. I'm not gonna keep you 2 hours. Kind of some of the broadcast was gonna let other people tell their stories. For whatever reason, it has to be the local tri-state storm. I'm almost positive of that. They didn't show up. I'll send them all reminder emails. We'll try this again. They'll probably watch this and realize the story I told, which I kind of tried to keep brief. Um, Gives me the credibility to talk about this. And I'm hoping that they do rewatch this show because I am going to leave it online. I hope they listen to kind of some of the things that happened to me and come on board because I do have the information that may help you if you have to go through some of the craziness I've been through in the last 2 years. Um, some of the things that I did to kind of get myself out of the situation I was in, even though it's still going on, but it's much better. My situation got bad at first, I'll be honest, because here's the biggest thing that someone needs to do in a situation like mine that I would advise anyone. You got to stay in control. You got to keep your temper. And that's hard. That's hard if someone who has hurt you really, really gets under your skin. And this is what happened with me. I had an ex who I really cared about people, and her ability to lie so badly put me in a position where I began to hate the sight of her, to hate her voice, to hate her aura. Because if you could lie that badly, you are a disgusting human being. Like it gets to the point so bad. It got to the point so bad, ladies and gentlemen, that I hated being in the courtroom with her. I hated to have to share a room with her. It put me in such bad energy just to have to sit in a courtroom with her that I could barely control my anger, people. This is how bad I hated her. And what she would try to do is manipulate the hatred she created by all of the horrible things she said to make it seem like that I was unstable trying to hurt her. When honestly, I just want you to leave me alone and I hate you because you're harassing the hell out of me. I just want you to go away. But she was able to manipulate that by trying to pretend to be calmer and more rational when the truth was when she's incredibly psychologically unbalanced. So the first advice I give anyone is that you have to remain calm. As hard as it's gonna be hard, believe me. If it's someone that you had a strong relationship with, a strong connection, if it's someone you had love for, believe me, it's gonna be hard to keep your composure. They're going to provoke you. They're going to say things that they know hurt you because by hurting you, they get the response they want out of you, which is to get you to appear to be the unstable one. I wish I had had someone in my life who could have told me this when my ex unleashed her assault on me. Because people, I hated this woman. Once I realized that she took everything I trusted her with while I was grieving over the death of my mother and was trying to destroy me with it, that she went after my daughter, people, I hated this woman. And I can use that word because that's exactly what it became. It went from a four-letter word with an L to a four-letter word with an H. It went that damn quick. And she earned it. But I realized that my hatred only zapped my own energy, if that makes any sense. Like I used to have such bad headaches when I got out of court because the truth is my blood pressure would be so high because I hated this woman. She would go to court and lie through her teeth and sit there and smile with the most psychotic fucking smile. Excuse me. That just took me back in the courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. Forgive me. She would sit there with the most psychotic smile and lie through her teeth. And people, when someone can lie on you that badly and you know they're lying on you, no rational human being is going to sit back and say, you know something, it's all right. I'm going to keep my composure. It doesn't work like that. If you're in a situation that could possibly affect your life, and someone is lying through their teeth on you, I mean literally lying, telling the judge that you did all of these things that you didn't do, you're not going to be able to stay calm. That's a lie, people. And anyone who tells you that that is not a lie is full of it. No one's going to be able to sit there and allow someone to lie that badly. It's going to affect you. It's impossible that it's not. Your job is to go take Buddha, take yoga, meditate, do I don't know what you have to do when you go home. If you smoke weed, hell, do that. You need to do whatever it takes. So while you're in that courtroom, you're at your most composed and calm. Because the sad part about it is this, especially the minority men who are watching this, I'm going to tell you something that is a 100% truth. The court wants to look at you like you are the offender. They don't want you to be the victim. They don't give a damn if this woman is trying to kill you. They want her to look innocent because it's better for them if she looks innocent. They don't want to empower any minorities, any minority groups, men, with any type of rights as a victim. They don't want us to have that. They want Caucasian men can be victims. They will get all of their rights as a victim. The cops will enforce orders of protection. The cops will arrest people. When you are a minority male, black, Hispanic, Chinese, whatever it might be, the cops do not give you the same respect. So in court, they're going to look to what you're doing because they're going to want you to mess up in some way that they can say, you know what, maybe he's doing something else. So you have one job, to stay calm. And if you can't stay calm, at least be consistent. At least be consistent enough that the judge knows that the way you are right there is the way you were out there. And what I mean by that is anger is not necessarily a bad thing, people. People get angry when they're hurt. And sometimes when you're hurt and angry because someone lied on you, you will lash out. That's a natural response, people. It's a response to someone that you were intimate with who hurt you by lying through their teeth on you to lash out and be argumentative with them. Now, they want us to keep, I would say, a professional appearance of the fact that things may be okay, but real life doesn't work like that because real relationships don't work like that. Real relationships aren't structured like businesses. They're structured like exactly what they are, a man and a woman who spend time with each other and learn each other intimately and learn how to look past, I would say, the social mask that we create every day we walk out our front door. The court expects us to, I would say, I'd say the court expects us to forget the destruction of that social mask that we managed to basically break down in a relationship and put the social mask back on and treat that person like we never had the emotional attachments to them. And we don't know the actual person underneath the mask being presented to the court. That's how I want to say that. And that's perfectly the way it's said. The court wants us to pretend like the social mask being presented to them is the same person that we might know. And the truth is, people, that the mask that a person has on in court is not the same mask that is not the same face they actually have in an intimate relationship with someone they spend time alone with. It's not. It's fabricated. But the court wants us to accept that fabricated mask as exactly what they're accepting it as, which is the truth. And a victim who is being lied on by an offender is not going to accept a false mask in court as the truth. It's a mask. They're lying. And you want to explain that to the court. But you have to stay calm to do that. You have to wait to give your chance. Your offender may stall. Your offender may file new violations. Your offender is going to do everything they can to disrupt your peace so they can get what they want. Your job is going to be able to ignore that. That's one. The second thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to gather as much evidence as possible that they're lying through their teeth. What that means, people, is do not be too proud to record them. Do not be too proud to take screenshots. Do not be too proud to look into stuff they're doing, people, because if they're doing things directed towards you that make you feel uncomfortable, there's a reason. If there's places that you go to that they've never been, but they start tagging them in videos, they're stalking you, people. That's exactly what that is. Someone who tags places that they've never been, that you're going to, is cyber stalking you, trying to do one of two things. They're trying to A, let you know they know about that place, or B, they're going to come after you through that place. Though that's an aspect of cyber stalking. Another thing they can do if they really want to get you, people, is they'll start physically stalking you. Physical stalking is some real mess, people. I was going to say some SHIT, but physical stalking is some, Like I actually had my ex outside my house within a week of me winning the order of protection, stalking me. And honestly, it made me a little afraid to the point where I did consider possibly getting a firearm, even though I had a record, I thought better of it. Um, but it made me afraid, people, because if I have to come and I have to worry about this woman possibly enticing a man to think that I'm trying to hurt her, when the truth is I'm trying to stay away from her, what's this idiot gonna do? I'm gonna have to kill this dude, or he gonna have to kill me. I'm not gonna sit here and let somebody hurt me, especially for something I didn't do. And it kind of puts you in a conundrum, people, because you have to protect yourself, personally, or you will be personally like liable for whatever injuries that happen to you. So you have to be mindful of that also. Another thing you need to do, babe, like I said, take as much evidence, recordings. Nothing's wrong with recording someone. Make sure you check out your state laws for recording someone, because in some states it's illegal to record people without giving them knowledge. But in some states you can record people because it's what's called a one-party state, which means as long as one person in the conversation is knowledgeable, the conversation is being recorded, then it can legally be used in court proceedings against you. Someone calls you up and starts talking and you start talking back to them, guess what's going to happen? If they happen to be, I'll use the state of New Jersey because I'm familiar with that. New Jersey is a one-party state. They can record your entire conversation as long as they're aware of it. It can be used against you legally. Now, if you get on the phone and you say, hey, if you're recording this, I don't consent to that, then they can't use it. Doesn't matter that they know they're recording it. You have made your position of not wanting to be recorded aware. So now that you've called them and they told you, hey, listen, before we say a word, I don't want this conversation recording. I do not consent to this recording. I do not agree with anything that's said in this recording, and I will not stand by anything said in this recording. You don't even have to say that much. You really just have to say, listen, if you're recording me, I don't consent to this. They have to let you know that if they're recording, or immediately stop recording. They can't take it to a cop and use it against you. They can't use it in you in court because you did not consent to being recorded. It doesn't matter that they know. As long as you say you don't, they can't record you. But if you never say anything and they start recording, guess what? You're being entrapped. They can record you. You're going to be recorded. It's going to be used against you. So be careful what you say about the phone. Let me think. What else can you do? What else can you do? I'm gonna be honest, people. I had a whole pamphlet. I spent like 2 weeks trying to make you guys like an educational pamphlet of some advice and tips. But every state is different, people. And the truth of the matter is, there's really nothing you can do if you have a dedicated offender who's trying to put you in jail and lie through their teeth on you. The only opportunity you do have is, like I just said, you have two strategies. One is to stay as calm as possible. Two is to gather as much evidence as possible, because the only thing that is going to vindicate you is the trial process. It's not going to be the cops 98% of the time, because the cops want to arrest offenders. They don't care. If you happen to be a minority, that just raises the possibility you're going to be arrested. If you happen to be a male, that just raises the possibility you're going to be arrested. If you happen to have a criminal record, that definitely raises the possibility you're going to be arrested. So if you have those three strikes in your favor, plus a beautiful offender, people, you're screwed. You're going to go back and forth to med jail multiple times until this woman either A, gives up, or B, they decide, either A, gives up, or B, someone comes along. Well, she gives up because someone gets into a relationship with her and never forgets about you. Um, it won't even, I can't even say it'll happen if you move, because if you move, she'll still come after you. It happened to me. So I can't even say that. The only real chance you have if you have a dedicated offender, people, is the trial process. You have to wait it out. You can't do anything. It doesn't matter how much you complain. It's sad that I can sit here as a victim and tell you this personally. It does not matter how much you complain. You're going to have to wait it out to the trial. And then once the trial happens and you win, you're going to have to sit back and gather as much evidence you can possibly still until the offender stops, or you're able to substantially prove that they are violating the order of protection. Once you're able to do that, people, you're able to, I would say, get the peace that a domestic violence order of protection will grant you. Until then, you're just going to be dealing with harassment. You're going to be dealing with aggravation. You'll be dealing with the possibility of the police showing up 5 o'clock in the morning with a warrant squad for a warrant for your arrest for contempt. You'll be dealing with the possibility of losing your job because your ex or offender decides to call your employer and tell your employer you're involved in sexual harassment or domestic violence. You'll be subject to be losing relationships because they'll go after new partners, telling your new partners you abused them or you harassed them or you did things to them that make this new partner question your credibility or your I would say standing as an individual. People, abusive ex-partners who use litigation as far as the law, family court orders and violations or false police reports against you, their mission is to ruin your life. Their mission is to make you as uncomfortable and unhappy as possible so that they can basically make you feel as unhappy as you leaving them now makes them feel. Now, some people might say that this is because they loved you so much that they wanted you to be they loved you so much, excuse me, that they they want to hurt you. But people, the one thing I can say in closing to that is that someone who loves you don't want to hurt you. Even who people who love you in the beginning, once they're over the initial breakup and the love kicks back in, because love doesn't disappear. When people really love you, it lasts. Love is one of those things that don't go away in life. As long as love was actually there, people, it could be 50 years and you're always going to feel the love for that person. Even the person may not be here. Even if the person has done something that you don't like. If you truly love this person, 10, 20, 30 years ago by, you're still going to love this person. But you're not going to go a month and decide you want to destroy someone just because you're not happy with your own life and things going on with you. That's not someone who loves you. That's a stalker. And you need to recognize a stalker for what it is and do your best to do everything in your power to keep yourself safe using the tips, the advice, and taking some of the experience I gave from my encounter with the psycho. I'm hoping that this broadcast was somewhat informative. I'm disappointed that out of the 9 people who registered for this, not one person showed up, but such is the age of the click of the internet and registering for a program. I guess as long as I did my responsibility as the host and gave some good advice and some good information, then on behalf of Operation Rock, we have done our duty to try to empower people who may have been set up or falsely accused of false claims of domestic violence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually probably the first of many of these online events I'm going to do this year, because the truth is, the more people we can bring together and educate, I would say, and inspire to speak about their experience, maybe law enforcement will come together and start prosecuting false offenders for one. And secondly, do some serious reform in domestic violence law, because people like my ex-girlfriend who can abuse the police and prosecutors just drain resources from women that really need those resources, that are being raped, abused, murdered, held against their will. Children are being abused. 2 cops that go to a call that my ex-girlfriend once made, they could have went to a mother's house where the child was being locked in the closet or malnourished, excuse me. They could have went somewhere where a woman was living in fear of her life because her drunken ex-boyfriend was about to come home. But no, they spent an hour or 2 hours listening to a liar who was like my ex-girlfriend, lied through her teeth because she was mad I didn't want to be with her because of her mother. People, I think if a woman like that could go unpunished for a year for doing something simply out of bigotry and racism within a local law enforcement system, that not only that local law enforcement in this system needs some serious look into its domestic violence system, I think domestic violence overall needs to look into domestic violence. So on behalf of Operation Rocket 759, we're going to cut this in half because people, we did our job. I am Clayton Howard. This was a great broadcast. I am thankful to the people who watched this, and I am thankful for the chance that God gave me and the opportunity that He allowed me to sit here, speak calmly, speak truthfully, because that's the most important part, people. The truth will set you free. We cannot allow the losers in life to rewrite what winners work hard for. And if you have won a domestic violence order against an offender who has been harassing you, you are a winner. Don't let losers rewrite history. I like that saying. That is the saying for 2020 fun. Winners do not let losers rewrite history. If you have won your right to peace, people, seize it, protect it, fight for it. Do everything you can. If anyone needs any advice after watching this video, you can DM me in any of the social media platforms I am. The charity, although I would say not adequately funded, we do have some resources, and I am looking forward to attempting and building a more, I would say, detailed support network for people who may have been falsely accused through false claims of domestic violence. Again, my name is Clayton. on behalf of Operation Rock, on behalf of its founder, the late great Reverend Howard, and on behalf of victims anywhere who may suffer and simply want the right to their peace. Spread the truth, fight for your peace, and happy 2021. Thank you for listening, people. Thank you for tuning in. The podcast will be up on the website soon. Stay tuned. Thank you.